The CCU is a revolutionary integrated pressurization and air conditioning system. The system is the result of a 15-year development and certification process, exceeding its design goals in performance, fuel savings, and reliability. Invented and perfected by Peter's Schiff Aero Incorporated, the first system was installed on Peter's Twin Commander based in Schiff Aero's hangars and a 2,000-foot private airstrip in the mountains of the Upper Cumberlands.
I've been flying this airplane, Turbo Commander 980 Bravo Hotel, since November of 1998. I love the airplane, and the owners, of which we've had several, love the airplane as well. However, the airplane has what I consider an Achilles heel, and that is the pressurization system. The original pressurization system that's put in this airplane is designed to fail, because that's what it did about once a year or every 300 hours from the day we bought it.
This airplane was rebuilt in 2000 by Eagle Creek in Indianapolis. Since that time, I have been through 6 Sunstrands in some 9 years, a little less than 9 years. I discovered Peter through advertising and contact with his new CCU system. Twin Commander was trying to convince me to put their Enviro system in, and in talking to a gentleman by the name of Art Ronan, who has a lot of Commander experience, I was advised to not use that system. Called Peter two and a half years ago, and we made a deal, and I'm one of the early ones to have a CCU system.
Conventional ECU pressurization systems pressurize the aircraft cabin utilizing bleed air that exceeds 100 psi and 600 degrees Fahrenheit. This wastes over 90% of the energy of the huge volume of bleed air that is used to pressurize the cabin. By comparison, the CCU pressurization drives a special turbocharger directly from the hot, high-pressure bleed air. The compressor section of the turbocharger then pressurizes the cabin with fresh outside air.
I have no problem with the bleed air odor in the cabin, which I did have with the Sunstrand, especially on light-ups. But cabin comfort is the key to the thing.
Very little energy is wasted. The result is that the bleed air volume from the engines is reduced by 2/3. The engines run more than 15 degrees centigrade cooler, produce more horsepower at the same fuel flow with as much as a 10% saving in fuel. With the CCU, when you shift bleed air from just one engine, the ITT or EGT only changes by no more than 5 degrees centigrade. With other systems, it will change 17 to 23 degrees centigrade. Each degree of change adds 1.88 horsepower per engine used to pressurize the cabin. And just as important, contaminated bleed air does not enter the cabin.
We don't get the smell of the engine gases every now and then through the cabin. They don't complain about that anymore. So they like it.
When there is a hydraulic leak, the turbine oil is heated dramatically by the engine. This heating produces a toxic chemical, TCP. If the cabin is pressurized with bleed air, this toxic air is introduced into the cabin to be breathed in by passengers and crew alike. Immediate effects to toxic air can range from headaches, flu-like symptoms, to difficulty in breathing. Health problems caused by bleed air have been recognized by Australian and European governments and organizations. Actual physical effects such as brain or neurological damage may occur, sometimes resulting in pilot incapacitation.
The cabin, of course, would fill up with an oily film and a little bit of a smoke sense, and you'd have to be inconvenienced, have to land the airplane, have to go find a rebuilt unit somewhere. Sometimes they were available, sometimes they weren't. Just a disaster, that unit. And I tried to find a good one, but after 5 times finally gave up and went to Peter's CCU.
Other systems use the bleed air to directly pressurize the cabin, which is a very inefficient way to do it. That's taking toxic bleed air that's 100 psi and 600 degrees Fahrenheit to pressurize and condition a 5 psi 80-degree cabin. So you have a 100-pound difference of wasted energy and about 500 degrees of wasted heat. In a typical Turbo Commander, that's using about 70 horsepower to pressurize that cabin. The CCU system takes bleed air and runs a turbocharger, taking outside air, putting it into the compressor, and pressurizing the cabin through a heat exchanger, which only uses 17 horsepower. That's using 53 horsepower less, resulting in a savings of 400%. The special turbocharger is a Peter Schiff Aero Incorporated development, featuring massive ceramic bearings, a pressurized oil supply, and an oil pressure readout at the pilot panel for maximum reliability. The original OEM ECU does not even have a pressurized oil supply. The CCU turbocharger is dynamically balanced so that it runs virtually vibrationless. The compressor section of the turbocharger draws in outside air to pressurize the cabin through floor outlets. The CCU provides substantially larger pressurization airflow than the OEM ECU, so that full pressurization can usually be achieved in problem cabins.
I've been very pleased with the system. It'll handle the high altitude and maintain the 6.7 at the 35,000. It maintains cabin pressure irregardless. And tongue-in-cheek, in the last 2.5 years, we've not had to use a caulking gun on the cabin. The pressurization overrides any potential minor leaks that might be occurring. My past life, the airplane had to be pressurized about every 18 months and sealed up so the Sunstrand system had an opportunity to even keep pressurization at the proper level.
The pressurization air passes through a heat exchanger on its way to the cabin. The heat exchanger is cooled by ram air from the belly scoop in the service access door at the rear bottom of the aircraft. The CCU system has a pressure regulator that controls the speed of the turbocharger depending on your need of pressurization and your altitude.
The biggest improvement was reliability. Didn't have to worry any longer about Sunstrand failures. The other big asset of the CCU was to have actually Freon air conditioning, which of course I did not have with the Sunstrand unit. And that's been kind of nice in the summer and when we're flying down in the south.
The feature that sets the CCU system apart from the other OEM ECU systems is a superior 134A air conditioning system featuring a variable speed Freon compressor with a soft start and dual condensers. It has no altitude restriction and can pre-cool the aircraft from a conventional 120 volt electrical outlet, a feature found in no other OEM ECU. All the cold air comes from a new special overhead panel.
The air conditioning system works great. We have plenty of heat in the wintertime at high altitudes. Other than that, they have no complaints at all with it.
For cabin heating, the exhaust of the turbine is recirculated over the heat exchanger if needed. Actually, the heat of the pressurized air is normally adequate to warm a cabin. Even during heating, bleed air never enters the cabin. Compared to the Sunstrand, Enviro, and Fairchild systems, the cabin comfort system is far and away the best, most reliable, and economical pressurization and cabin cooling addition to your Turbo Commander that you will ever need. The CCU is designed for reliability, not failure.
It was basically between the Enviro unit that Twin Commander was selling through its service centers and Peter's CCU. And I had a lot of talk with people who had the Enviro unit, and they were not happy with its service, with its failure rate. So I decided to take a chance with Peter.
My recommendations for any Turbo Commander owner is I considered the pressurization system from the factory the Achilles heel of this airplane. And when I found Peter Schiff and the cabin comfort unit, I immediately convinced the owners to put the system in. He assured me that I would get maximum 5.0 pressurization and a cold cabin, which is all I want. I just want something that'll work real good, last a long time. And he's delivered as promised, and I'm thoroughly happy with the airplane and the system that's in there now, the cabin comfort unit.
The CCU is designed for simple troubleshooting and accessibility for servicing. Peter Schiff Aero Incorporated maintains a complete parts and inventory for immediate shipment. If a part is not an off-the-shelf item, the parts are built in-house. Peter Schiff Aero Incorporated doesn't rely on outside vendors, but is a grounds-up developer and fabricator. There is a network of certified installers across the country who can install or service the CCU system and are easily reached with just a phone call. Commander Aero is an authorized installer of the CCU system.
The service and technical support from Peter has been great. If we do need a part, Peter can ship it out usually that same day. The few problems we have had, Peter has been great at working with you immediately, getting you, troubleshooting it with you, and if it needed a part, getting a part out that day and helping you if there's any questions installing the part and getting the plane back up flying.
Parts availability have been no problem whatsoever. Every time we've asked for a part or we need one, he's shipped it right out. We've had it within a couple of days. He's very good. Peter answers the phone when you call him. He's never been too busy to deal with any issue that you have. And so I'm thoroughly happy with the relationship that I have with Peter Schiff. Like I said before, I consider him a friend as well as a maintenance provider. And I've known him now for 4 years, and everything he has told me that the system will do, it has done.
The CCU system has demonstrated improved reliability compared to the OEM pressurization installations in the Commander. PSA recognizes that cabin pressurization is one of the most immediate criteria for flight safety at altitude. In a continuing effort to innovate and improve the CCU system, PSA is now providing an independent backup pressurization system. The PSA emergency pressurization taps directly into the bleed air line by means of a clamshell assembly. The industry standard electric bleed air valve directs the bleed air through the CCU heat exchanger and subsequently to the aircraft cabin. The result is full pressurization at FL 280 with temperate bleed air for uninterrupted continuation of the flight. This backup system is designed with an absolute minimum number of parts for maximum reliability. It uses a pilot panel switch, an electrical relay, and the bleed air valve, and that is it. Peter Schiff Aero Incorporated is a complete aircraft maintenance, manufacturing, and fabricating facility. It features a welding shop and all the equipment and instrumentation necessary to install, maintain, and calibrate your CCU system. Peter Schiff Aero Incorporated receives manufacturing support from Braun Machine in Dayton, Ohio, an ISO 10004 certified company, and several second source facilities in the Cookeville, Tennessee area. The choice is yours. Do you want a system that breaks down every year, fills the cabin with toxic bleed air, and leaves your passengers and crew miserable? with an inadequate air conditioning system? Or do you want a system that delivers years of reliable service, fuel saving, and increased horsepower that keeps your cabin cool, pressurized, and safe? With a stellar reputation for design, manufacturing, and reliability of the CCU system, outstanding customer service performed by Peter Shift Aero Incorporated, and a network of support across the U.S., there is no alternative choice for cabin comfort.